everybody. I'm thrilled to welcome Erica Sponberg, a valued member of NIALPA and our membership coordinator, to the podcast today. Coming off an amazing annual NIALPA conference last month, it's so great to be here with Erica to sort of debrief and just talk a little bit about the conference, but additionally looking forward to membership drives and thinking about how we can continue to grow our collaboration together with Erica's leadership. So, Erica, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And for our audience who may not be as familiar with your work as I am, can you start by just sharing a little bit about your background and then what led you to your current role at NIALPA?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think a lot of people, you get into the language learning world by being a language learner yourself. And I studied French for a very long time, which, led me down the path of then teaching English abroad for many years. And then coming back to the US and just continuing my education. Got into teacher development, pre-service teacher development, and then ended up at the state of Indiana. So, and that's how I got into or involved with NIALPA. So, I think it was like 2021, 2022. Dr. Nicole Leach, her and I were former colleagues at the Indiana Department of Education. She's also our former NIALPA president. At the time, she was in the vice presidential succession line, and she was really involved. And as her colleague, she just really encouraged me to join. I learned about the organization through her. And I saw how connected she was to the national conversation around multilingual learners. She was also the person who encouraged me to run for the membership coordinator position, which brought me into to doing the work here.
That's awesome. Isn't it great to have friends that continue to push us to grow and develop and learn more and sometimes take a step out of our comfort zone and do things we didn't think we could do?
Yeah, I think it really goes to show you how important your personal and professional network is, because you never know where it's going to take you.
Absolutely. And we share a common connection. I was at the Iowa Department of Education, so in that Midwest sort of corridor of the country, leading the work around English learners and immigrant students, about the same time you were at the Indiana Department of Education.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I really enjoyed my time
mhm.
at the state. I learned a lot and it gave me a really unique perspective. So I'm so grateful to that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think every perspective in education is so helpful, whether it's at the state policy level, federal level, classroom level. Having multiple perspectives really helps us be anchored in the work we're trying to do because we can see it from so many different angles and see sort of all the challenges from all the different aspects, but all the opportunities as well based on roles we've had in our sort of professional history. So I'm just excited to dig into your work with NIALPA, but also connecting back to the past work at the State Department and other professional opportunities that you've had over the years. Yeah, so when we think about just the benefits of membership to NIALPA, there's obviously a range of resources and opportunities that members have access to when they become a member of NIALPA. But what would you say are the top benefits of being part of NIALPA? And do you think there are any lesser known parts that you'd like to highlight for our listeners and our viewers?
Yeah, I would say first and foremost, the best benefit to being part of NIALPA is the network of people. As you know from working in Iowa, when you are in the English learner specialist role or dual language role, wherever that Title III work falls under, you're typically one of one, or you are part of a very small team. And that can make collaborating, brainstorming, finding thought partners, learning from other people's experience can be challenging. And what NIALPA does is that it broadens your network to a national level. So you can really lean on folks that are doing that work within your state. And that's not only true for if you're in a state role, but also if you are working for a school district and maybe you're the EL coordinator or the multilingual learner coordinator for the district. And again, you're sort of in this position where you are one of one or one of few. and having time to try to build your own local network, it takes a lot of effort. And so having an organization and being a member of an organization that fits into that niche of work that you're doing can really accelerate the process of building out your network, leaning on professional friends to make sure that your local support
Mhm.
um, is the best it can possibly be.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I used to joke when I was at the Iowa Department of Education, we'd have folks reach out and say, do you have someone from your English learner team that could, serve in this role or be part of this committee or join this conversation? And I would say, well, let me check. So my team involves three people, me, myself, and I. I'm not sure which
Yeah.
one of us might be available, but it's going to be one of the three of us because that's it, right? So it's true. I mean, I think a lot of times in state departments or even in districts and small districts, there might only be one person or a small group of people who are responsible for everything related to English learners and multilingual learners. And so it is very isolating. And even if we're part of a big team, we get isolated at our state level. Maybe we're only really engaged with our state policy and the work we're doing in our state. So just having that opportunity to get up out of our context and take a look at the bigger picture and see what are other states doing, what are other districts doing, what are other individuals doing, that always just helps us broaden our own perspective and really continue to grow and learn, because sometimes I think we do get sort of mired down in our own context and we don't realize there's something else out there that's going on around this space and this population that we could learn from and we could start to bring back to our own context. So I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah, when I think about, my own experience with NYALPA and its ability to open doors that I might not even have known existed, it's when I became membership coordinator and I started to attend those executive board meetings. Every month, I got to hear directly from OELA, from a team of experts in legislative affairs, experts from research organizations. I mean, NIALPA's advisory board alone is very impressive with people who are long-standing pillars within the multilingual learner field in the US. And it was really motivating and empowering to be able to learn from them, hear what's happening, and then be able to return to my position and report back to my team about what I had learned about what's happening at DC or within other states. So it was really, yeah, that I think was also one of the sort of lesser known perks of being part of NIALPA, and then also being part of a committee that you can then get in access to those meetings and to have those conversations at that level.
That's a really good point as far as just the opportunities for collaboration are pretty endless within the NIALPA membership. So it's not just that you have access to this broad network of folks, but you have regular ongoing opportunities to connect in very specific ways. I know one of the things I've really appreciated with my membership to NIALPA, and for those of you that don't know, or maybe, I don't know, Erica, if you even knew, I was a past president of NIALPA myself. So when I was at the Iowa Department of Education, I've had a longstanding membership, have served on in a variety of roles on the board, one of those being the president. And so just having access to not just the network that I can reach out to based on my membership, but having organized events where those networks are brought together and leveraged in specific ways, like the webinars that NIALPA puts on, the coffee chats, the different ways that we can come together. So I'm glad that you sort of mentioned some of those opportunities. I'd like you to just focus in now on a success story of one of those forms of collaboration. Can you think about a story that you could share with us where that opportunity to collaborate or support one another really led to something positive, like positive and powerful in terms of an outcome?
I mean, the most recent example that I can think of is collaborating on um, our NIALPA's public statement about the recent executive order on um, making English the official language of the United States. That was a pretty powerful moment for me. It was a collaborative effort from the board. And it was kind of the first time that I was a part of collaborating on a document and on a public facing document that is, you know, making a larger statement to what's happening nationally.
Mhm.
And as you know, when as a former state employee, you don't, you can't have, that's not something that you are able to do.
Mhm.
Rightly so, for a variety of reasons. So being able to be a part of that is was really powerful for me. Um, Another example that I can think of is just the ability to share resources within our coffee chats, for example. Um, a, that is one of the best places where you really see what other states and districts across the US are doing, and being able to share information that you can immediately apply to your context, I find to be pretty powerful. Another tangential example on this idea of collaboration comes from something that our former membership coordinator started. She's now my co-chair, so she's been so helpful in me to transition into this role, Carlene Thomas. She started NYELPA ambassadors. And this was a way to encourage members to be able to have the tools to bring to outreach to other members within their state and within their local network. And the success story that Carlene and I always like to talk about is our former or our current vice president, Stephanie Vogel. It was through a NYELPA ambassador bringing in someone who has now taken on, the presidential succession role as vice president. So, and her contribution to NYELPA has been awesome. Um, Her role in helping to support the conference planning, she was the former treasurer, and it was also, she comes from the state of Vermont, and it was a way for her to also build out her network in a state that doesn't always have the resources to join larger organizations like CCSSO, where the cost can be really prohibitive.
Yeah, so one thing you said that just made me think about another role that NIALPA plays around not just collaboration, but being the voice, a collective voice for all of us. To your point, if you're at a state department or a district, of course, we have First Amendment rights that we can engage in as individual human beings, right? But in our roles in certain professional organizations, we are not allowed to use our personal voice because of requirements that align with policies of the department or specific goals, agendas, legislation. There's just certain things that we are not able to say, even if it's our own personal belief system. And so,
Yeah, no, there's definitely like an element of self-governance where
yeah.
that you just adhere to because that's just part of the culture of working at the state level. Yeah.
And that's you knew that going into the position that that's what you're signing up for, and that's a responsibility that you have in your professional role is to be aligned with the governor's and the director's priorities, and that you'll be supporting those. And your personal belief systems sometimes come into conflict with that, but you continue to do the work. You continue to lift up the populations they're serving within the policies and legislation that you have to work with. But that being said, NIOPA can be a collective voice that can step outside of maybe state policies or federal policies and be the voice of how we believe and feel and understand our English learner and multilingual learner populations. And that's really helpful because without that collective voice, the voice of our students is silenced. Because if we can't individually be the voice of our students, and sometimes they can't individually be their own voices or their families can't be their own voices, NYELPA has the ability to be that collective voice and represent so many of us who can't necessarily step forward and represent ourselves individually in our professional roles. I love that you brought that up because whether or not it sort of ties into collaboration, I think it's almost its own benefit in a lot of different ways.
Yeah. I think it's through professional organizations that you have the ability to um, advocate for your field, for students, the professionals within the field. And that I think very much, I mean, that's part of the role of being in a professional organization. That's part of the duty and the obligation is being in service to the field, and part of that service is advocacy.
So thinking about sort of taking a look ahead, as NIALPA continues to grow and evolve, what are your goals or initiatives for the future in terms of membership?
Well, when I think about growing membership, it really is it's not just, you know, me or the membership committee. It's all of the committees that, contribute to NIALPA. And it's everybody on the executive board, and all of our chairs of those committees. So I did want to just take a moment to talk about some of the efforts that NIALPA's committee work does to grow membership. Our communications committee has our quarterly newsletter. They're doing social media outreach and other outreach campaigns. The Advancing Multilingual Policy and Committee, the AMP committee, they are integral in writing our position statements and developing resources to connect our state leaders to national policy guidance. Our LEA, or local education agency, for those folks listening or at home, the LEA committee, they bring in the teacher voice to NIALPA. They directly engage with members who are part of school districts, and they really are that bridge between policy and practice. Our professional learning committee, that committee, they host our quarterly webinars. Those quarterly webinars are a great way to engage people who aren't members yet, because they're free to anyone who would like to join, and they cover topics from multilingual family engagement, supportive classroom practices, and then, of course, to our critical advocacy work. And then our membership committee, we help organize our member-only coffee chats, which are informal discussions on timely topics, and it's a great way to learn from and connect with our members across the U.S. But our annual conference is by far the largest draw to increase membership. This year's was in Atlanta, and we had about 100 folks who were part of that conference. It's one of our best ways to bring in new people, and this is where we see our biggest jump in numbers. And it's because we're such a niche field within the language community that we will partner with NABE, and which I think was such a smart move by our executive board. It's the conference is our signature event, and being a partner with NABE, or being able to lean on them, gives us such a larger audience. So I do think that, yeah, that's our flagship event. And I know, for thinking about the future, our wonderful um, outreach and events coordinator, Jenna Webb, she has some really great ideas about what we could potentially do to expand or extend the conference. So we're really thinking about that. I don't want to say too much yet, because we don't know what will come about. But she has been amazing in coming up with some really great ideas on how we could either potentially do a hybrid only, or an online only conference, within the middle of the year. But again, yeah, we're thinking about different activities that we could do throughout the year to sustain membership. We do have another thing that Jenna also has worked so diligently on is our Connect Space app. That's our membership app. It's where you can find, or you can join the quarterly meetings, or I'm sorry, the quarterly webinars. It's where you can join the coffee chats. It's also where you can have the direct connection with all of the members. of NIALPA. So we're hoping to be able to grow the use of Connect Space so that members are feel more comfortable reaching out to other members through Connect Space to build out their own network. So that is yeah, one of the big pieces for what we're working on in the future. We're going to be continuing working on building resources for NIALPA ambassadors. We are, with the help of Connect Space, we're also able to have a more data-driven focus on targeting states that might have low membership, or maybe we don't have an SEA representative from that state, so we can do more targeted outreach using Connect Space. So yeah, those are some of the things that we're thinking about.
Awesome. So a couple things that you said, obviously because I've been around a really long time, and maybe some others who are listening or viewing have also been around this EL space for a long time. They might remember back in the day where NIALPA only had SEA membership. So maybe you're new enough, but maybe I'm not sure if you know that, but there used to be a time where to be a member of NIALPA, you must have been an SEA employee. So that's definitely changed and grown, and that's allowed NIALPA to grow in amazing ways over the years. I also love that you brought up the connection with NABE, because during my year of presidency, we hadn't had a conference for a couple of years. I don't know if you know when the partnership was established, but it was during my year of presidency because I have a partnership with NABE, and I've had a long-standing history with working with that organization and believe strongly in their mission and vision, and felt like it was a great alignment for NIALPA and what we do and our mission and vision. But when you haven't had a conference for a while, it's really hard to get a conference stood up. It's a really big budgetary commitment. So the only way we could reinstate our conference was through a partnership. So just a shout out to NABE because they stepped up for us that first year. We did not have a budget for it. And so they donated pretty much everything to us, the room space, the food, they did all of it. Otherwise, we would have not had our conference. So
Really smart move, Joby.
yeah,
That, 'cause
no, just
yeah, yeah,
uh, I don't know if I would say smart or necessary. Sometimes you
yeah.
do what you have to do because again, we didn't have the budget to start our conference back up. So I just, again, want to just appreciate all the partnerships because NABE's been a great partner, but NIALPA has been a great partner to so many organizations as well. And it really is about that giving, right? So NIALPA gives to others, NABE gives to others, we give to one another, and together we're so much stronger. So individually, each organization has, power in and of itself, but when we come together collectively on behalf of our population, so much power in that connectivity.
Yeah, yeah. Agreed. I do, yeah, I think it's really smart because it's also because Nyalpa is such like a niche
Mhm.
field. Like you said, it's like, Title III directors at the state level. It's grown, to include LEAs. And I think people who attend the conference really enjoy that it's small,
Yeah.
that it's very targeted to people who are doing, this critical work. And it allows people to attend, because we all know professional budgets are limited. Being able to travel for work and funded by your work is also limited. And so being able to sort of piggyback, I think opens the doors up for more people to attend who might not be able to, or being able to bring their colleague, you know,
Mhm.
I think is huge.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that Nyalpa has done a really great job of building that synergy with Nabe over the years, and then also being able to co-market and to have folks who maybe wouldn't be able to travel for just, a day and a half, but if they're there for the whole week, like it gives more opportunity for, folks to come and get a dual benefit, right? Attending both NIALPA and NABE, like what a great opportunity on
Yeah.
one set of travel funds, right? Yeah. Well, finally, my last question for you is really just to reflect on personally what the most rewarding aspect of your role as membership coordinator is for you. And is there like a particular moment or experience that stands out during your time with NIALPA?
Yeah, I think this year at the conference, presenting Kelly Alvarez, our treasurer, but also former president, with this year's Sustaining Member Award. was just a really nice moment for me to be able to give back to somebody who I have so much respect for. It also felt like um, it also kind of it took me a while to kind of get into the groove of NIALPA and what it means to be the membership coordinator. Um, and so I do feel like that was also a moment where I was able to kind of stand up in the role and in a way that was maybe more visible than what I had experienced previously. And it was really nice. It's always nice to give somebody their flowers, you know, when they're right there doing the good work. And that I think is part of being part of the membership committee is being able to really honor our members and highlight what our members are doing, not only for the organization, but the good work that they're doing in the field. And maybe that's a new idea that we need to continue as like a member highlight within our newsletter.
Yeah. No, I love that idea.
I'll have to write that down. Yeah, so yeah, I think that was a really nice moment and yeah, made me feel like I was part of the community in a
Yeah.
way that I might not have felt before.
That's so awesome. So thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today, Erica. It's been wonderful to hear about the incredible work that you're doing to strengthen NIALPA's community. And then to everyone who's watching or listening, we encourage you to stay connected and involved with NIALPA as we continue to grow and support one another. Now more than ever, I think it's going to be so important for us to stay connected and to be supportive of one another. There's obviously a lot going on in the political landscape right now that has created a stronger need and a sense of urgency to work together. Thanks so much for joining, everyone. Be sure to check out NIALPA's website. There's a lot of amazing resources there. And I just want to end by saying, I truly believe that together we can, and nothing's impossible.